Welcome back to my channel. This is Chella Chats. I'm Chella. I'll be doing the chatting. If you're new to my channel, we talk about all things mythical, mystical, magical, some creepy, some cryptids, and possibly some conspiracies. So if those are things that pique your interest, I invite you to hit that subscribe button down below and stick around for the fun and mayhem. So with that introduction out of the way, let's get into our category. So for today, I had a little bit of conflict in trying to figure out what category this topic falls under. So I think we're gonna put this in the superstition category. So let me give you a little anecdote before I go straight into it. So way back when I was in grade school, maybe about middle school, high school, I recall several situations in which I'm at lunch with my friend group. The last of our friends is finishing up their lunch, and they go to take their last bite of food, and they spill it or they drop it. And one of the first questions that is always asked is, who gave me ojo? So if you're from Southern United States or Hispanic heritage, then you probably know what that means. That's right. Today we are talking about the evil eye. So originally I wanted to make this the topic of my first video. Coming from a Hispanic and Mediterranean background, just a couple of my cultural backgrounds, it's something that I have had in my life for most of my life. So, it very much interested me, especially, hearing more of the Greek side of it when my dad started learning more about his own Greek heritage. So, like I said, I decided this would be the first video. So when I started to research it, there were so many other cultures that partake is not the word, believe in the evil eye and practice some sort of rituals or protection, like wearing charms and things like that. So very quickly, something that I thought maybe would only be like 2 pages of notes grew into like 8 pages of notes. And typing it all out, I have very much doubled the notes for my last video. So I've decided that this video will actually be in 2 parts, and the first part will be just like the very basics, the very tippy top of the iceberg and the curse. So like, people who are typically seen as casters, different types of symptoms related to it, and possible tests to see if you've been afflicted. And then the second video will be protection, prevention, and cures from around the world. So with all that said and out of the way, let's get into the basics. So if you've been living under a rock and you have no idea what the evil eye is. It is defined as a curse transmitted through a malicious gaze. But it is also the amulet or talisman used to combat, either deflect or cure the curse from said gaze. So by malicious gaze, it means, like a hateful stare or even an envious stare, a covetous stare. According to BBC Culture, the concept is that one who amasses success or recognition also attracts envy, which is the root of the curse that aims to undo the good fortunes. So basically, it's the law of balances. When you have something good come in your life, you have to also accept some of the bad. So when you have something fortuitous happen, you're also going to draw envy, which aims to undo or disrupt the fortuitous nature from before. In life in general, there's the 5 elements, and in the Indian perception of the evil eye, it is the disruption of that harmony between the 5 elements. So when one element kind of goes out of whack and gets a little bit more, gets a little bit stronger than the others, then you have potential for the evil eye curses, as well as other curses in that region. So, of course, a lot of what my own personal knowledge, as well as a lot of what I've found in my research, stems from or is more focused in the Greek viewpoints of the evil eye itself. It was very prevalent in Greek culture, and Heliodorus of Emesa, an ancient Greek philosopher, writes, "When anyone looks at what is excellent with an envious eye, he fills the surrounding atmosphere with a pernicious quality and transmits his own envenomed exhalations into whatever is nearest to him." So basically, when you're filled with that jealousy, that hatred, then basically you poison the vibes, you poison the aura, the energy around you, and so whatever's around you ends up being affected. We can also see this, I'll talk about it in just a little bit, in the Jewish viewpoint of the evil eye. So, as I've already touched on a little bit, this mythos spans so many different cultures, so it's really hard to pinpoint a specific date or location of the origins of this superstition, so to speak. So some of the earliest writings were found in ancient Ugarit, which is modern day or part of modern day Syria, and they date back to the 13th to 12th century BCE. Like I said, it was super prevalent within Greek culture, that hundreds of writings from well-known philosophers and authors of the time wrote about it. Such authors like Plato, Plutarch, Pliny the Elder, Hesiod, and Heliodorus, just to name a few. As well, around 40% of the world's population, so very nearly half of everyone in the entire world, believes in some iteration of the evil eye. Of course, it was typically seen as pagan in origins, which can't really argue that fact. But it has been found in both the Quran and the Bible. A quote from Islamic doctrine is, "The influence of an evil eye is a fact." So, very prevalent in Islamic culture. And then it is also widely found in Jewish rabbinic literature. So it is mentioned very vastly throughout the Pirkei Avot, which is the ethics of our fathers. I hope I said that right. One of the more well-known stories involving the evil eye is the story of the 10 sons of Jacob. So they had to go down to the markets in Egypt, and because they were thought to be very handsome, very good looking, there was the worry of being cursed, being gazed upon. So to make themselves more inconspicuous, instead of, going all together and drawing the attention, being 10 incredibly good looking guys, entering the market together, they all came in from 10 different gates to just kind of blend in a little bit better to avoid any possible curses. In rabbinic literature, there's also writings of the good eye, which conversely to the evil eye, it is rejoicing in the successes of others' prosperity. So instead of being jealous, being happy. So if you're genuinely happy for somebody else with no jealous undertones, then you're said to have the good eye. The caster is seen as a great danger to the moral purity of the community. So Rabbi Abe Isaac Kook writes, "The evil eye is an example of how one soul may affect another through unseen connections. The evil eye is the venomous impact from malignant feelings of jealousy and envy of those around us." And also in rabbinic literature, there's a belief, and I very much see it and I agree with this thought, that the 10th commandment is a law against the evil eye. If you don't know what the 10th commandment is, it is, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's things." So don't look upon what your neighbor has with envy. Kind of just keep to only worry about yourself. Don't worry about what your neighbor has. I really like this thought because I'll read it and then I'll say what I think. So Plutarch in the Symposiacs writes or suggests that the human eye has the power to release rays of energy so potentially strong that they could kill a small child or even an animal. And right away, my mind went to Cyclops. I mean, he shoots lasers out of his eyes. Like, if that isn't some form of the evil eye, then I don't know what is. Now, moving on to the amulets, talismans. The earliest form of a evil eye amulet dates back to 3300 BCE, and these amulets were excavated from a site referred to as Tel Brak which has been dated as one of the oldest cities in Mesopotamia, which is another part of modern-day Syria. And these little guys, I think they're pretty adorable. They're pretty cool looking, in my honest opinion. They're little white alabaster idols with very large eyes. And when I say very large eyes, I mean like they don't have a head, they just have two giant eyes. And I'll put a picture up so you can see and judge for yourself. And this also seems to be where some sort of belief stems from, that fake eyes can be used to either divert or reflect the gaze and protect a potential victim. Another early form of an amulet is believed to be the blue eye of Horus. Eye of Horus in general was believed to be an amulet for protection. Some historians believe that it was an early predecessor to the modern day Nazar, which is kind of like Middle Eastern, Eastern European verbiage for evil eye. And it was colored blue to appease Turkish invaders, as the color blue is associated with the sky deity Tengri, as well as blue is just believed to be a color of protection. And it's not just in this culture, that kind of is seen throughout the world. The modern iteration, which is this little guy, as you can see, is blue, white, little black dot in the middle. It can be dated back to around 1500 BCE in the Mediterranean area, with the first images dating all the way back to around the 6th century BCE. And they were first found painted on drinking vessels, although eyes were painted on just about any object that the people of the time thought could possibly be cursed. Then, with the advent of glass manufacturing in the Aegean Islands, the symbol was made in bead form, and they turned it into jewelry, like my bracelet, necklaces, so on and so forth, and ornaments like wind chimes to hang around the house, at your businesses, just anywhere that one might require protection. And of course, this very quickly went global through trade. Now, a fun fact that I found is that in modern broadcasting, evil eye is referred to a stare that is, or a look that is given to a commentator to kind of wrap up what they're saying very quickly, as they are short on time for their segments. Now on to the curse itself. So one belief that is found through so many cultures around the world is that people with blue and in some cases green eyes are believed to have the ability, or are more likely to have the ability, to curse at will. So they can basically control when, where, and who they curse. And I know you may be thinking, but if blue is thought to be a color of protection, why is it that blue eyes are more likely to be seen as casters? Comes from the simple notion of back then, anyone who was perceived different, even in the slightest, like, you could look exactly the same except for your eye color, and you were perceived as a threat or some sort of wizard or witch, or like you had some sort of magic ability that made you different. And it's not just in like Greek culture, it everywhere throughout the world. Since blue and green eyes are very rare, these areas saw them as having some sort of otherworldly ability, and because it revolved around the eyes, that it was associated more so with being able to cast the evil eye. Now, aside from people with rarer eye colors, the more common casters were believed to be strangers. I guess this refers to like just strangers passing through the village, old and childless women, so someone you might refer to as a spinster would be a threat, and the malformed, so anyone, I guess, who's like born with a deformity, who had an accident that left them disfigured in some sort of way, would be seen as a threat in that sense. Now, in some places in Europe, those that had the ability to cast the evil eye were perceived as witches, and these people were usually people with unusual eye shapes. So, since we're talking about Europe, typically people have much rounder eye shapes, and if you just happen to have more of a narrow, almost almond-shaped eye, then you could be perceived as a threat in that sense as well. And another one is people who had unibrows. So if you have a unibrow, with great power comes great responsibility, so consider using it wisely. And a majority of these people who believe that most cases aren't caused maliciously. So, as we'll see in a little bit, something as simple as giving a compliment can leave someone open to a curse. So it's not really seen as something that was malicious or even intended. And you can be, like I just said, you can be cursed, of course, through glares, but also through praise and compliments, whether it's intended or not. Now, there is a Polish, Slavic folktale of a man who was born with the ability to curse at will. So he cuts out his eyes in order to protect his family and those closest to him, namely his children. And in ancient Greece, it was believed that the power of the Gorgons, so if you don't know what Gorgons are, Medusa was a Gorgon, and if you don't know who Medusa was, the snake-haired lady, she had the power to turn people to stone through making eye contact. And this was seen as a very extreme version of the evil eye. And I have to say, I I see the validity in that. Now, a lot of cultures, namely Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, Hispanic, and Latin, believe that young kids and babies are most susceptible to the curse, with many of the symptoms involving illness, injury, discomfort, and even possibly death. In medieval Europe, it was believed to be bad luck to have your children or even your inanimate objects praised, so they adopted phrases like "as God will" or "God bless it" to counteract. In parts of Asia and Africa, soul loss is thought to be more prevalent when the mouth is open, when one is eating or drinking. So, as a means to prevent soul loss, meals are generally saved to be done at home with your family, and I guess it would be like your immediate family or close friends, or in solitude, I guess, would be key. In Ethiopia, Bauda, evil eye, is their power that is held by a special social group. I guess the social group depends on the area of Ethiopia that you're in. I saw one example was like metal workers. So I guess it really just depends on the area. Now, in India, Hindus believe that the power is rooted in jealousy. Both malicious and admirable looks can cause the curse to appear. So, when this happens, they believe there is a threat of your cow's milk drying up. And if you don't know anything about Hindu culture, one of the main things you should know is that cows are very reverent and sacred to the Hindu belief. So, in order to kind of counteract any possibility of a curse, there is a tradition of giving milk to someone you admire. I guess it's like passing on the good fortune, so to speak. In Turkey, the curse is cast on those who are undeserving of good fortunes. So basically, like if you've ever been in a situation where, say, you got a promotion and someone says you didn't deserve it, or you overhear that someone believes that you didn't deserve it, then you're at risk of receiving a curse from that person. And then you, as the target, become vulnerable to injury, illness, and even possibly death. Now, in Brazil, they refer to it as ojo gordo, which is the fat eye, and their version of the curse derives from insincere compliments. It can affect your houseplants or plants in your garden. So if you have someone who, I guess, is very envious and very jealous in maybe your family or your friends, and they come to your house and they become jealous by either some new thing that you have, or just your situation in life in general, you will know that there's a possibility that they could have cast the evil eye, because your plants will wither away and possibly die. Like, they'll go from being super duper healthy to just being dead. Plants are definitely, in Brazilian culture, are definitely very prominent in being able to detect and absorb evil energies, so to speak. Now, a way to tell in children if they have been affected is when they were under the age of 10, they are very good, well-behaved children. Then, say, as soon as they hit 10 and in their teenage years, they start acting out and, getting in all sorts of trouble. Then there is a thought that they may have been cursed by a parent of a child who is not very well behaved. Most would just call that being a teenager. But, you might want to check it out and make sure they weren't cursed. Also, if you have young children, maybe watch out for parents of children who are not so well behaved around your own kids. And with that being said, in Brazilian culture, and this is really the only one that I found it in, they don't really perceive the evil eye as a serious, severe threat to the young ones, to babies and young kids. It's more specified for adults, and it is viewed to afflict more so relationships, financial situations. So, moving on to Latin America, if you believe that you are cursed, you can then go seek out a curandero, or like a witch doctor, a medicine man, and he will perform a test on you by taking a raw egg and kind of just sweeping it over your body and then crack it into a glass of water. Now, the egg is believed to have the ability to absorb any mal ojo, so evil eye, from a potential victim's body after it has been placed in the glass of water. Sometimes it can be placed under the head of the bed overnight, I guess, to further absorb any potential ojo that may be lingering. And when it is inspected, either right away or the next morning, if it appears to be cooked, then that means you were cursed and the egg did its job and it removed the curse. Now, in Puerto Rico, we have mal de ojo. It's all the same. And it stems from jealousy, and it can be disguised as compliments and admiration. And it leads to bad luck, injury, illness. Are we seeing a pattern here? But as well, it can affect a person's speech, definitely affect their relationships, their work, and their finances. If you have a child that is possibly afflicted, they might exhibit symptoms such as loss of appetite, weakness, stomach aches, insomnia, fever, nausea, eye infections, lethargy, and bad tempers. So, a lot of maladies that befall a child if a child is cursed. Now, in Mexico and Central America, cursed people have a disturbance in their hot-cold equilibrium. So basically, if you have an issue regulating your body temperature, that could be a sign that you've been afflicted. And this effect is said to come from the hot gaze, which causes a person's internal temperature to rise, i.e. a fever. Now, if your baby is hot and fussy after being outside, then it is a possibility that your baby has been cursed. And like the egg test from Latin America, they do that in Mexico and Central America as well. Now, in Italy, in the Roman era, whole tribes of Pontus and Scythia were believed to have the power to curse. And they have jettatore, which is somebody who is able to wield it and curse at will. They are described as having high arching eyebrows, striking facial features, and are generally seen as successful and or powerful men. And I didn't really think about this until I was typing out my notes and script type thing, but someone in the present time period that I thought of is the lead singer of the Italian band Måneskin. He has high arching eyebrows, he has striking facial features, and he is a successful man, given the fact that his band won Eurovision 2021. So, you know, I'm not implying anything, but I'm just saying. Pope Pius IX, along with other public figures and even gangsters like mafiosos, were believed to have obtained their power through the use of evil eye. Another thing, in ancient Rome, the evil eye, malocchio, as it is called in Italian, it was believed to dry up a man's sexual liquids, if that makes any sense, thus causing impotence. So in order to kind of counteract that, they use sexual gesturing. An example given was like a guy scratching his balls as a means of distraction. So you can't curse somebody if you're distracted by something, I guess, as vulgar as a guy scratching his balls in public. There's that. And then there's other things, like I said, that I'll get into in the prevention, protection, and cures. Now moving on to the Islamic culture, it is the belief that individuals have the power to curse simply by looking at a thing. So it's just a simple, you either have the power or you don't, and you can just simply look at something and curse it. It doesn't necessarily have to be through an envious gaze or a malicious, hate-filled gaze. It's just as simple as looking. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have malho, which stems from the French malheur, and in this region, they believe that you can curse accidentally, as with some others we've seen. It can happen inadvertently when staring, especially when someone is eating. The curse will be more severe when intention is set behind it. So if it's done on accident, then you might just have a little bit of bad luck. You may trip more than usual, skin your knee or something. But if somebody does it purposefully and intentionally, then that's when you get more serious illnesses or injuries that could possibly put you in the hospital. And babies and kids can be cursed with something as simple as a general compliment or even a head pat. So if you're in Trinidad and Tobago, watch out for people wanting to pat your kids on the head. It can even come from admiring parents. Now, I've heard of some of my friends who have kids that have or do this. So like when you have a young baby and you go in and you just watch them sleep, that sort of thing is believed to be a type of thing that can leave them open or leave them susceptible to being cursed. And it can cause them to cry constantly and not want to eat or drink, so loss of appetite. And there are two kinds of curses. They have dragging, which, you know, it kind of self-explanatory. It's something that is dragged out. The victim withers away and shrinks until they're dead. So shrinks isn't like weight loss, you know, just withering away. And then once again, this next one is self-explanatory, the 24-hour curse. Death can occur within 24 hours if immediate attention is not sought out. Now moving on to Grease, which is the, let's say, forefront of evil eye ideations, beliefs, what have you. Now, one of their main signs of affliction is if the victim and the healer of the area yawn profusely. So if you just can't stop yawning, or you say that word too much and it's gonna make you do that. If you yawn too much throughout the day, more than what is usual, you can be seen as being afflicted. And if you're known to be a healer in the area, then there's a good chance that somebody in your town or in your family is cursed. So they as well have some tests to make sure. The first one is the oil and water test, and there are 3 different variations of this. So the first one is you just drop 1 single drop of oil into holy water. If it floats, then you're okay. And if it sinks to the bottom of the cup or the bowl, then you are cursed. The second variation is you do 2 drops of oil into the holy water, and if they stay separated, once again, you're okay. If they merge together, then that means you are cursed. The last variation of this one is you take 3 to 9 drops of oil and you put them into a plate of holy water. Now, if they kind of stay separated and, you know, as solid little drops, you're okay. You're good to go. But if they grow and dissipate into the water, then that means you are cursed. And one of the purposes of this is to also test the severity of which you are cursed. So if you test it with 9 drops and like 6 or 7 of them dissolve into the water, then that means you are pretty strongly and severely cursed, as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 dissolving, which could be very slight or in the early stages of curse. or maybe it can mean that a weak caster is the one who cursed you. And throughout all of these tests, whichever variation is used, a secret chant is recited, and it is a closed practice. So pretty much only the healer and the afflicted person, or the healer and the afflicted person plus maybe a close loved one or their family. But it's very closed practice. Another test that they have is the clove test. So a healer will prepare cloves and put them on the tips of pins, and then will light a candle. They will then take the cloves and hold it, do the sign of the cross over the potential victim, while said victim thinks of who could have possibly cursed them. Then they take the clove to the flame. If it burns silently, then you're okay. You were not cursed. If it bursts and crackles, then you guessed the right person. You got it on the head, and the bursting releases the curse. Now, if it does what is referred to as logia, or has a slight noise, then you are being bad-mouthed. Basically, if the clove is talking, that means someone out there is talking. And then the flames are extinguished, and the ashes, along with the pins, which are now contaminated, are buried in a safe location. The Greeks also believe that it is possible to give yourself the evil eye. So it is very important to stay humble out there. And lastly, Veskania, which is their word for the curse itself. But Veskania is seen as being cast by the devil and envy itself, and it is believed to be harmful to both the caster and the victim. So it is very much one of those, you're causing harm upon yourself when you're trying to cause harm on someone else. These are just regular philosophies that you should live by in your day-to-day life. Take care of yourself, stay humble, but take care of others as well. And that is where we are going to stop the first video. That is all I have for the basics and the curses. If you watched it all the way to the end, I thank you for sticking with me. I know this one is a long one. The next one will be shorter, and that will come out next week. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you liked this video, consider giving me a like. Maybe comment below, let me know, have you experienced the evil eye curse or experienced any of these tests? Or if you have a different cultural belief than what I talked about, share that in the comments down below. I'd love to read any stories that any of you guys have. Also, give me a subscribe. I'm trying to grow those numbers. And I will also link some social medias down below, which I will be better about posting on both of them in relation to the channel. And yeah, I'm Chella. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. See you next time.